I'm Matt Daloisio again for Witness Against Torture. First, I just want to say how indebted we as Witness Against Torture, many of whom are in this room, are to all the groups that have spoken today. It's the work that they've done that has really allowed us to get as far in the work that we've done. So a word of gratitude and many thanks to all the folks here today. I'm going to ask folks in the room to indulge me for a minute, and I'm not going to go over my time. I'm going to use some of it with this. I want to ask folks who are able and willing to close their eyes for a moment. And I want you to think of where you were in January of 2002. Now we're 7 years from there. How many weddings have you gone to? How many funerals have you gone to? How many birthdays have been celebrated? How many gatherings with friends, meals together? Men in Guantanamo have been in Guantanamo since January 11th, 2002. When we look at the policies that are being talked about, what we try to ask ourselves is, if I were sitting in Guantanamo right now, if I were one of the 70 men on hunger strike, and I heard celebration over an order signed that would close the prison in a year, how would I feel? If your eyes are still closed, you can open them. Witness Against Torture began in an attempt to visit the prison at Guantanamo in 2005 in a response to a hunger strike that was happening at the time. Since then, we've attempted to, in many ways, embody the work of the people who have spoken today. In 2007, we went to the federal court where it had been ordered that Guantanamo detainees could go, but they had not been let in yet. So we went, and we left our identification at home, and we took the names of the men in Guantanamo into that federal court, and many were arrested. The next year, on January 11, 2008, we went to the Supreme Court. At that point, the case was before the Supreme Court. And again, we left our identification at home, and again, we took the names of the men in Guantanamo. And again, we were arrested. Now we're kicking off a 100 Days campaign. We're beginning with a fast that I spoke about earlier. As American citizens, we have many tools at our disposal. And we're hoping to implement many of those during the 100 Days campaign. But we wanted to recognize as well that the men in Guantanamo have very few. And the one tool they do have is their bodies, and they're using it right now. There are over 70 men on hunger strike, many being force-fed. We're not policy analysts, we're not legal analysts, we're not lawyers, we're teachers, we're artists, we're activists. The 100 Days campaign is a daily sustained presence in Washington, D.C., where we hope to have a weekly schedule of congressional education, public education, vigils, direct action, all in an effort to keep the men in Guantanamo in the public sphere. After 7 years of detaining hundreds of men without trial, the one-year timeline is not acceptable. And we recognize that Guantanamo is actually probably the best foreign prison that the United States operates right now. So we know our work is far from done. We know we have over 20,000 people imprisoned throughout the world. And there's no reason that the rights that have been won by the people who have spoken here today for the men in Guantanamo shouldn't be extended to all of those men and women and children. I'll close with saying some of the thinking behind this campaign sort of informed a little bit by history. Journalist Bill Moyers has recalled a meeting between Martin Luther King Jr. and President Lyndon Johnson, and he said Lyndon Johnson listened to King. And then he put his hand on King's shoulder and said, in effect, okay, you go out there, Dr. King, and keep doing what you're doing, and make it possible for me to do the right thing. And that's what we as activists, as mothers and fathers, as teachers, want to do. So thank you to all the groups up here who help us do that, and we look forward to helping implement many of the things that have been talked about today.